What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is The Fate of the Furious. The Fate of the Furious is an action film that was directed by F. Gary Gray and is the sequel to the 2015 film Furious 7, making The Fate of the Furious the 8th installment in the Fast and the Furious franchise. Alright, so The Fate of the Furious kicks off not long after the events of Furious 7, where our crew is scattered in different parts of the world, silently waiting to be called on for another mission. Well, that mission eventually comes, but the leader Dom, played by Vin Diesel, turns against his familial crew due to a deal he's made with a cyber terrorist named Cypher, played by Charlize Theron. After Dom goes rogue and steals a valuable asset for his new partner Cypher, the Furious crew begins assembling with the help of some new members as well, and the rest of the film is spent watching the Furious crew attempt to bring Dom and Cypher to justice, but we also get some insight into why Dom turned on his crew and is working with Cypher in the first place. Alright, so to be honest, I've never been a huge fan of any of the Fast and Furious movies. I enjoy them all for the most part, but I can't say that I've ever really loved any of them, and that's partially because there's an approach that's present throughout basically all of them, and that approach is to have fun at any and all costs. Action first, story second, and the story doesn't really have to make sense. It usually doesn't. And that kind of makes this film a tough one to review, because on one hand you're like, as a viewer, this story makes no sense, the characters are all over the place and there's forced relationships among them, the dialogue is often fairly cheesy, and the action is such a departure from reality that it's tough to ever find it believable. But that's what the Fast and Furious franchise is. They know what their movies are and they stick to that formula successfully. The Fate of the Furious is almost exactly the same as all of the other Fast and Furious movies. The only difference is the fact that this time Dom's a bad guy. That's basically the gist of it. You get the same cast of characters trying to band together and complete a mission in fast and explosive fashion, with fast techno music playing in the background, while the characters also consistently joke with one another and exchange cheesy yet fun banter back and forth. That's every Fast and Furious movie, and this one's no exception. There's definitely some fun and silly humor present in this film, and I think overall it's pretty good. Cheesy, like I said, but there's quite a few chuckles to be found here because the cheesiness is clearly intended. It's not like it's just so unintentionally terrible and bad, because that would be a different story. One thing that I think helps elevate the script of these movies is the actors who are in the key roles. I think that while this film definitely misses the presence of Paul Walker, who was such an integral part of this franchise, The Fate of the Furious is probably the best cast that the Fast and the Furious franchise has ever assembled. This cast is pretty loaded, and everyone's performance elevates the mostly generic material, but I think the addition of Charlize Theron was probably the most impactful for me this time around. I think that while Cypher as a character can wear on you a little bit as the film progresses, Charlize Theron's performance was mostly pretty strong. In action movies like these, that strong villainous presence is incredibly crucial, and Charlize Theron delivers at a satisfying level because she's a great actress and she can elevate the once again generic character. She definitely whispers a lot and speaks really slow and dramatically, which can feel a little repetitive, but I liked her as a villain overall. And of course you want to know how the action is, because it is an action movie after all, and The Fast and the Furious has always drawn in viewers first and foremost because of their over-the-top ridiculous action scenes. And the action scenes are just as over-the-top and ridiculous as they always have been. They're fun, they're exciting, they look nice, they completely ignore physics, and they'll definitely satisfy you if you enjoyed the other films. Even though these films are basically all the same, we still all go see them for the action scenes. It is fun stuff. While the story mostly kept me entertained, it's sort of tricky because it's a pro and a con at the same time really. On one hand, it's very straightforward, pretty easy to follow, and sets up the desired action scenes, but on the other hand, when you really think about it, it's pretty flimsy and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think things just happen with no real rhyme or reason, and there's very little consistency. This is especially the case when it comes to Cypher's capabilities. She's basically untouchable for most of the movie, but then when the climax hits, she gets knocked down a peg so our heroes can win. Trust me, you'll notice this when you watch the movie, you definitely will. And the crew members are eventually placed on the most wanted list, and then they're just like driving around high speed in broad daylight, operating just as they always have. I mean, there's just a lot of things in this film where you really gotta completely suspend your disbelief because the things that happen are just so outrageous. It's their style, I get that, but it makes it more of a turn off your brain and enjoy flick than anything else, which can be sometimes a little frustrating, for me at least. There's also inconsistencies in a few of the characters' motivations. There's no rhyme or reason for why they make some of the decisions they do other than for dramatic effect. You can't really gain a full understanding of the characters in anything but a superficial way because there's no logic behind some of their decision making. You may not care, but for me this is always kind kind of bugged me in the Fast and the Furious franchise, and this deficiency is especially notable in this film. But overall, The Fate of the Furious is an enjoyable experience. It's an action-packed popcorn flick. I thought it had some solid acting from a loaded cast, some funny bits of humor, and some explosive and thrilling action scenes. Sadly, I also felt the dialogue can occasionally get way too cheesy, the story often makes very little sense, and the characters' motivations are often awkwardly forced. I'm gonna give The Fate of the Furious a 7 out of 10, and generally recommend you see this one in theaters if you've seen and enjoyed the previous Fast and the Furious films. This one is more of the same. So did you guys see The Fate of the Furious yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite film in the Fast and the Furious franchise. For me, it's probably Furious 7, but hey, they all sort of blend together at this point. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.